So,
Right. I want to talk, right? Like, how can we make?
first of all,
I want to talk about. Let me put my hat. I feel like this is part of my signature.
I want to talk, right,
Right.
about these
Celebrities who's suddenly
making a thing about.
the combat sport, like fighting.
So I'll say a few names.
Ray J, Orlando Brown.
Um, these are famous.
These are well-known people who've reached celebrity status, and they could brag about saying it that it's been, let's say, for decades.
But nonetheless, they
Yeah, they grew up in the climax and environment of rich people.
and if they struggle,
Struggled. It was very, very minute compared to the average folks in
and
America. Ray
J, I think,
tried to reach out to me at one point. Maybe it was a fraudulent account or scam on somebody else, but I think he tried to reach out. I got nothing against him. It's just he seems the type of guy, right, where I would have to
I would have to.
stop in the middle of our discussion and say some shit like pause or hold on, relax. Like, you're going a bit too far. I know your intentions. The LZ don't get down like that. Because if you don't, uh,
they don't know.
reality, they brought up celebrity status, and when you get to that level, you want to show a lot of love and appreciation, but
Their love,
comes from an innocence that can sometimes be misconstrued,
and it becomes
political.
because hold up,
You're not supposed to do that, Um, but since he's been brought up in that environment with a lot of love, uh, there was nothing wrong in what he do because it came across as innocence.
I'm a slow sipper.
That's you know what I mean. That's just how I see it. Um,
But
the real world um, couldn't get away with stuff like that, and
was taught
what is foundational and etched in stone
how
things can be, rather than the ignorance and the innocence of the ignorance, and nobody telling you that you're doing wrong. So he's just one of those that I would probably like have to tell, like, yo, hold up, you slipping, don't do that. You know what I mean? You might get checked, you might get knocked out, you know, because some people might get loose and are very, very reactive, and their impulse is a lot more animalistic and not prepared. But you know, I know where he's coming from. You know, I know his intentions. There's just no structure and discipline in it because, like I said, he's been brought up in that environment. Like MJ, Michael Jackson, all his life, he didn't get a chance to be a kid. He don't know what it is to be a kid because he was rehearsing, dancing, making music because their father forced him. You know, so he never had that chance to be a kid.
Similarly,
These celebrities like Ray J, Orlando Brown, or whatever, grew up in that environment where they had a narrative to a certain demographic for a little bit, but as the real world kept maturing in real life, they only got the Fugazi end of it, you know, and they never learned to be authentically themselves. So they're attempting to doing something like this, right, where they're both fighting. It's you know, it's to remain relevant to for the bag, whatever reasons, right? Um, there's no fault in what they're doing because they're doing what they need to do. But I I I'd be open to suggest that if they be interested in balancing that equation out of them being people who
are known to be
celebrities with a narrative that they speak for the underground when they don't, right? Um, can balance it out by letting an unknown factor. Not just dumb, even Jay. I hear Jay, right? Um,
the one that cut his
his hair,
and to do that,
that without no explanation or significance.
but that
It was too simple. But anyway, that's I'm digressing. Um,
even him,
supposedly is getting an album out, but now for him to remain relevant, he has to surpass or maintain the status quo, and he's more and more looking like um, one of those characters that is described in the book of Kings, where if you study the Bible, right,
their career
doesn't last that long. I think the longest one maybe was
Samuel,
Sam
David, 40 years. Uh, so,
getting lost,
but their kingship,
right? Their rulership lasted at most 40 years. Um, the great ones, you know, the least the weak ones, they ruled maybe 2 years, 4 years, and they were a king that made it into the pages of history, but their reign was very short and minute. And so he's just looking like one of those, you know, uh, because he didn't know how to keep up with the new. And I think anybody struggles with that. But the thing about him was, see, I'm digressing, but I don't really like a lot of things about people who in the previous I looked up to. He has no art. he has no heart, and there's no um, artistic passion.
So he comes off
As this,
so
anyway, RJ, you know, these categories of these people growing up to
a topic that
that many of them are not skilled or qualified to to conversate about. But I'd be open to the suggestion of maybe them or you, the audience, because it's all in the end is what you like. Right now, you like to see the battle of two celebrities, uh, teenage, you know that they're more like Nickelodeon. That's the word. They're Nickelodeon, and it'd be interesting if you, the audience, because look, they're gonna make some money off of that fight. You know, regardless how Nickelodeon it is. Um, but give? Why not balance it out and see if they really, you know, should get that attention that they
expect.
because they've been, you know, celebrities since infant.
Um,
If you're gonna make 100 grand or more, million, let's say, just off of this spectacle that's for entertainment,
um,
I think
it's not a wrong.
idea or concept for you to get someone from the underground that's more attached to the world. Uh, Maybe right now, you know, it's not a it's not a it's not a popular notion, but I'd be open to the idea of challenging one of these figures.
Um, you know,
I'm not a professional. I never fought professionally. I can say the same as that. I think I qualify. Like, I'm nobody. I don't have no professional, you know, make. So there shouldn't be like them scared of fighting me because I'm not like a Mayweather or Mike Tyson. I mean, at least that's the perception, right? um, there's no record or history
of me being
someone who wins in a boxing match. Uh, you know, there's no evidence, none of it. So
why not?
why not challenge someone like that? Give that opportunity to an unknown factor who never boxed in there, just like you, who never fought professionally, right? And and by the way, I'm you know, I look like I'm in my 20s and shit like that, but I'm older than you. Some of these Nickelodeon characters, you know, and
I feel like it's a duty.
to remind them uh, SmackDown or something. Like maybe maybe you need to shut me up. Maybe that's a good factor where you be like, you know what, I'm gonna shut this guy up and I'm gonna punch him in the face. Maybe
That's what you gotta do.
do and prove your whole fans that this kind of factor of a nobody who doesn't have who's just like you basically without the celebrity status, uh, you know,
Can't qualify you.
it's proof to your fans, and I'll be open to that, man. You know, like there's
You could find out.
there's no record of me beating anybody. except
maybe what you hear on the streets or whatever, and
who was I before I became a father or some shit.
but
I like some of their like for RJ. I see his attempt of being lovable, and he tries to portray this character of being.
um to 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 get the attention. Like I said, I just
I
think
think he's one of those that you gotta push like, step back, stay in stay in your lane. You know what I mean? Don't cross the line again, or I might react different and not very nice. But other than that, I think we'll get along. I just think, yeah, if you want to make it entertaining, um, do that. Don't match up with other Nickelodeon characters. Switch it up by getting an unknown factor. The same goes with Jay. If you want to remain relevant in the music industry,
it can't be
you can't be 60 years old, uh,
expecting to make deals
deals,
with characters.
you know, that are known from the 90s and shit.
What you gotta do,
If you want to adapt, improvise, and overcome, and I shouldn't be telling you this, but you should
try
try
to do something.
something with an unknown factor to balance that. And as you make this unknown factor now popularly known, it boosts yours in a way you did not think previously. It
Shows
you are more, I don't know, humanitarian or something, and your portfolio will grow. But if you want to, I mean, you could keep doing what you're doing, and you're gonna be successful, but your reign is gonna be short, you know, um, because you didn't want to keep up with the new, you know, you
ignored it.
or it wasn't qualified, it wasn't acceptable, it didn't reach the requirements because it was beneath you.
And
That's what's gonna that's the end of your career. That's why you're not gonna be popular. I mean, as time goes by, uh,
oh,
America. I kept telling people this about a theory. I'll be writing notes down, just to keep my mind focused. But
um, so there's a thing.
what people don't recognize. So
A lot of people are talking,
talking about nationalities, particularly the Caribbean islands.
but what they fail to see in this, um,
So Black Americans don't see eye to eye with Africans who say that they should see themselves as African with African ancestry, right? Black Americans don't consider themselves Africans, even though like thousands of years, 500 years or whatever, that's where they came from. The same concept is being spread everywhere.
where
Dominican Americans don't see themselves as Dominicans. If you graduate, Jamaican Americans don't see themselves as Jamaicans. So
So
the same story is passed down if you're very perceptive and want to accept the truth. Um, the only thing that we all relate to is that we have the American attached to it. You're Jamaican American, you're Dominican American, you're French American, whatever, Italian American. The American is what crystallizes us together. But with anything, we refine. So they came from a place seeking to escape or
a better life,
and that's why they came here, right? And you were born. But no matter the race or nationality you were born with, you were born to be refined and better than where they came from, regardless of the country. So you sharing this alignment with other Americans, your whole purpose is to represent a refinement of what was previously consumed. But here's the thing. America's anger grows, and it is unlike any other in any other country. You know, if I get into a fist fight, for example, it takes us only one punch. I have a sibling who's locked up for that very reason. Um, and you know, I like to say that I like to theorize and say it's because America has more anger and built-in fury
than any other country in the world.
And so when you see activities where there's scuffles and stuff like that, you're seeing maybe some of them in the infantile stages. But anger grows. Sometimes, if you're patient enough and let that anger grow, it influences nature. Thousands of people die. And all because you were in control of your anger. So there's levels to the executing of the wrath, of the fury. And it could go as simple as domestic violence. It could go as simple as just an ordinary scuffle on the streets. Or it can go as big as like a Sodom and Gomorrah under the world flood. But this kind of anger can only be, or this wrath can only be executed from taking in from having tolerance of and taking the world's pain
And suffrage.
So yeah, man, I want to fight. I want to see if we can make that a thing, right? Like, let's make. And plus, I wrote books about it, where I'm basically the new Rocky, underground fighter fighting the champ. You know what I mean? So if this can please your mind to the notion of building a hype where you want to see something like that, you know, me fighting one of these characters, but either Nickelodeon or you know somebody you think is more appropriate. But let's make it, you know,
Lucrative. Let's make it lucrative.
and let's show people what content is about, you know. And so I spoke about how anger grows, right? And everybody's discipline is different.
Different.
And
It takes discipline.
to become greater. And we all fall short. But you need to aspire to those who are doing better than you. And yeah, so Jay, he needs to collaborate with an unknown factor. Say you could say it's even charitable. You could say it's for charity, or some shit. I don't know. Make it look like you're the good guy, but if you don't do that, um, you're gonna be irrelevant, you know. And because I don't know what affinity these people have with him, because I grew up with his music just like they did, but I wasn't infatuated to that shit, you know. Like they probably seem to be. Only person that ever made me write when I was in my teens was Rakim. So I gotta, you know, I gotta pay, homage. It'd be to him, cause when I was young and I heard that album, you know, it just made me think. I got reflective and shit. I was like, oh shit, I never thought about it. I don't know, something in me just is like, now I was deep thought, just like how he was, you know. And then I started writing. But all these other characters, man, let's make it interesting, man. Let's make it interesting. Let's not just make it about the Nickelodeon factors. These characters from Nickelodeon, you know, where they got that green glob or whatever, gob, just fall under them and shit. And know that how black Americans differ from Africans. The same shit is going on with every other country. Dominicans, Jamaicans, you know, just all of them. When you're born in America, none of the Americans that are born have the same empathy, if you will, with their
Country, because they expect you to feel, you know,
relate when you can't, because you've been refined. You're getting better. You're supposed to be quicker, faster, stronger. And they're supposed to be what's obsolete. resonates, good. That means you got a lot of frontal lobe activity going on. And if it doesn't resonate, you gotta practice using your brain more. Even if I go take it light, I feel like if I get that opportunity to fight one of these, characters, the Nickelodeon people, um, it will be a good display of what anger looks like. And I don't want to hurt them, because I know they're Nickelodeon characters, but it'd be interesting to give people a dose of reality, or prove me wrong in my buffoonery, right? Show me that your illusories is more effective than my reality. Prove to the world that your illusions are more real. I wanted to say buffoonery, but I said that earlier in the wrong way. And also, it gets lonely at the top. These are things that you gotta undergo, and you probably gotta be a celibate for a while and have no relationships. You gotta master those things because um, that just gets in the way of things. But don't let it. I love the connection, and I want more of it. But in order to be great, you have to sacrifice, and sometimes the sacrifice be the very desires your flesh be wanting. And not everybody's up to that task. I'm like, damn, I'm not dark. I'm in the dark. So, it's been, I feel like it's been like, oh look, over 30 minutes. Over 30 minutes long. So, what I'm gonna say to y'all is, remember what I said. Also, don't don't be someone who likes to take loans. This is just, disciplinary action. Don't be someone who likes to take loans, likes to owe people, and don't pay on time. Part of the reasons I don't like to chill around when most, or maybe like I'm like always by myself. It's because I don't like to be around people who at the end up looking hypocritical. Their word isn't bond. If I say let's meet up at this location to work out, right? Go jogging, let's say at 6 in the morning, and I show up, and then you're not there, what does that tell me? What does that tell me? That tells me that you're not a person who takes their word serious. And so, a person without their word is not a person, because the word is everything. Without your word, you're nothing. You don't realize it maybe till later in life if you're young. But I've always been a fast learner. I've always been ahead of my time, in my prime. A vet. A vet in my prime. So now the rest of the world is going on. What do you think my move's been like if I've been ahead of my time from my prime? A vet in my prime. Your eye wonders. Rightly so. And let me tell you, there's a lot of progress from where I started. If you've been following me for a while, you know, at one point I was homeless. I used to live on the streets. Surrounded by drug addicts. And it is under these conditions that I learned to hone my skill. You're not worthy or qualified to judge. In any disagreement or dislike that you see emanating from this very live video or stream, however they call it nowadays, right? You're not qualified because you didn't really live real life like I did. That would require you to undergo a lot of pain and suffrage. It's not for the weak. I'll let you in on a secret. I don't like to tell this, but in a way, I kind of invite the pain. I kind of look at death in the eyes and say, bring it, motherfucker, I'm ready. I think maybe you have to be a little bit psychotic, but it's all righteous. Because no matter what, this life or the next, you're gonna feel my energy. And so that's what I want to say, man. You know, let's make it interesting and bring unknown factors. Like I said, I'm not a professional. I've never been in any, you know what I mean? But give me that opportunity and let the world decide who deserves it. Who deserves that status more? I ain't shit. I don't even like to talk to people. I'm not friendly. And I'll tell you how it is. Most of the times, I know how to be polite. I don't know if you're like fat and ugly, and you tell me, and you dress up in a tight ass dress that make you ridiculous, and you ask me, how do I look? I probably say, you look beautiful, baby. If there's grace, I don't know, depending on how I feel. But if I don't feel like that, I just tell you, man, you fat. That changed, man. You look ridiculous, and you shouldn't get mad because nobody's perfect. I ain't perfect. You know? I got a lot of shit that I need to work on, and nobody's perfect. You know? But one thing I will tell you is that I will be very glad and quick to volunteer to the opportunity to show these niggas what anger or because what they're doing is entertainment. But how can you fake anger when you're fighting against each other? People are paying a lot of money to see these two people fight authentically. And these are entertaining, these are Nickelodeon characters where they're not supposed to be considered a threat. Like I said, I don't want to hurt them. American Anger, you know what? If I'm triggered, I'll probably say some Mike Tyson shit and say like, "Yo, I want to eat your heart out," and gargle it in my mouth before I spit it out. And I'm gonna assassinate your character. But I ain't Mike Tyson just yet. I'm getting there. I'm learning how to do my Muhammad Ali or trash talk, and I think it'd be easier for me than one of these Nickelodeon characters. And they're not from Nickelodeon. I don't think they are. I just came up with that. It just came out on the spot. I don't know if they were ever Nickelodeons, but that's
It's
just
the way that I speak, you know.
Candy Muscles. I would say featherweight, because these people you look up to are really tiny sometimes, and there's some that are huge and giants, but some of these talk about in their prime they were like 130, 140, 120 in their prime. What the hell is that? That's not normal. In my prime, very very skinny, had abs defined and everything. The lightest I could get was 160, 165. To get to 130, I would be like anemic, a skeleton. For them to do that, um, we're just not on the same level. you know, um, you could feel the density in my handshake, or pat if I put my hands on your shoulder, or if you're my girl, right, and I rest my arms on your chest or something, like I'm cuddling with you, you would think I'm choking you or some shit
because of the weight. And I ain't using no
force. It's just heavy to you. But I'm just, being relaxed. Alright, so yeah, we took this a little too long, and people get it personal showing their relationships with girls. I want to show you the life of a disciplinary person who's been celibate and strict with his principles and diet in order to seek perfection.
that many portray uh,
as something attainable through desires that are made up of illusions. By the way, I came out with a book released in a couple of days ago, and just the whole notion of a character. You never seen the character that's displayed or written in my book. Not in no movies, not previously in any other books or authors, because I made it so to stick out and have his original um, concept. And this is keep in mind, I was thinking about characters like Superman, Spider-Man, even the ones that are outside of Marvel and DC, like Fast and Furious, Riddick, right? Even the ones that are outside in other countries. There's not a character described commercially anywhere like I've described in my book. Because because I made it like that to stick out, Like I didn't want to be like the other status quo. So hopefully you learn something from it, learn what real hunger looks like and discipline and mastery. You're looking at it in real life, in real time. And when I go down, it is not because, let's say, like a AB character who fucks up but who really can't correct himself. Because they let the addiction take over. This was like DMX. DMX was one of those characters who had the love of the streets and religious people because he talked a good one when it came to the gospel. But what made him look hypocrite was his continual abuse and use of the drugs. And he didn't know how to adapt. You couldn't put him in a podcast or make a movie with him without him having a fit or because his mind was so ignorant and fucked up where he didn't know the language. Sometimes he had to get played. And people had to narrate his life for him because he didn't have the aptitude of exceeding other people's expectations. he got boxed in. And by being boxed in, he was limited. And other people had to talk for him because he didn't have his own mind caught up in that bullshit. But people catered to him because of his talk about Zach. And people are kind. They don't want to let you know the truth. Like I used the example, if you're fat, some people be like, "Yeah, you look good, baby. You look good in that dress." That's to not tell you the truth. Where they really want to say, "Nah, man, you look fat." Sometimes you might be really, really good, and you might be fat and you look good in that dress. And I'm not knocking that shit. Keep it up. But there are other times when you're fat and you don't look good in that dress. And many people will say you look good. Even I fall victim to it. I don't want to hurt your feelings. But if we was to be honest and do this
Strictly,
off of validity of light, talent, skill, whatever, intelligence, you will fail. And you can't make it in the cut. And you shouldn't be mad because there are other people who are more hungrier than you. You have to accept this. Even I accept that someone might be. Although these times, I doubt it. But like I said, I'm introducing the concept of let's make this happen, man. And let's not only make it off of figures that they expect, which is like under $1 million, right? Let's make this so relevant or equates to someone like a Mayweather fight. They make $500 million in a fight or something like that. Because only like that, I think, real talent will sprout. Right now, it's all gatekeeped to people who's been in that conglomerate or infrastructure, and the main focus is on those people who showed intention on that infrastructure, but I would say as a revolutionist and anomaly, that something new should be presented where that establishment allows an unknown factor to balance its whole ideology. In that regards, when it comes to celebrity and fame and what strikes public opinion. Let's build a pyramid in America. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks everybody for tuning in.